Hello and welcome to Builders. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Sepehr Mohammadi, AI and machine learning tech lead at Apotea. Apotea is Sweden's first full-scale online pharmacy, known for its innovation in e-commerce and logistics. Apotea is not just leading the e-commerce space, it's pioneering the use of AI and machine learning to optimize logistics, enhance customer experience, and drive data-driven decision-making. A major part of this tech revolution is Sepehr Mohammadi, who has an impressive background in data startups, fintech, and building scalable machine learning platforms. With over 4 to 5 years as a tech leader and over 300 interviews conducted in the AI machine learning space, Seppi is a true expert in hiring, platform building, and navigating the evolving AI landscape. Today, we're going to dive into AI leadership, building machine learning platforms, hiring for AI roles, and the future of automation. Seppi, a warm welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Lee. I'm doing really good here, and I'm really appreciating you having me in your podcast.
Really nice to have you with us, like I said, so thank you very much. Let's start, shall we, with, like I always, a bit about your journey. Tell us a bit about your background as an introduction here.
Yep, to talk a bit about my own background, I would like to start talking about, the nature of building. I've always considered myself like a builder and mostly toward like the engineering side. And since I was in high school, I was always had this passion about, building engineering products, either both physical product that you use sometimes like in operation, mechanical products, or also software products. And that was the main passion that kind of pushed me toward studying engineering in my bachelor. And it was during my bachelor where I started to join a startup as an early joint engineer, where I first worked as a data engineer because I was really passionate about, how we can utilize data, how data can serve the different use cases, different, goals that we have for example, machine learning or analytics. And after a year, that startup was refounded, and the main goal of that startup was to help, people who doesn't have big amount of money to be able to do risk management and to do investment with a better approach. Because usually when you hear about risk management, different kind of approach in financial market, it mostly requires you having, a lot of money. Then you can really measure risk or have some goals about your trading KPIs and everything else. And the goal of that startup was to make ordinary people who just want to do trading, who just want to do investment with a small amount of money, to also be able to do risk management on their portfolio. So that was a time that I also got really into building something that actually helps people with their life. I got the feeling of, okay, what I'm working on is actually helping some people to achieve something, to feel better with their life, to feel better with what they are building for their own future. So that was a big turning point in my career that showed me my passion is not just about building something. It's just also to serve people, to see that end user, customers, people around me, they are actually enjoying what I'm building for them. So at that moment, that startup got refounded. And then in the second round of the startup, I was kind of a co-founder with the startup, and I was working as the lead for the data and machine learning team, where I started hiring so many data engineers, machine learning engineers, and data scientists to build the team around the product that we were building. And so that was a time that I was thinking, okay, should I go for more leadership or management, or should I still keep in touch with my main passion, which is coding and being involved in engineering, being involved in small details? And I wasn't either happy with just doing one of them. When I was just coding, I wanted to lead people here or there, lead projects, talk to more stakeholders and everything like that. But when I was just leading and doing the management and stuff, I was missing the coding. So I was always looking for a role in between to be able to do both. And that's where I am now. I'm doing a technical leadership role, which has a bit of management and leadership, but when it requires, I can be hands-on myself.
Got you.
So, yep, that was the time that I started to work in this between leadership and management and being technical hands-on. After that startup was acquired by another bank, I joined a fintech company called Cred in Sweden, in Stockholm. That it was a kind of a small fintech company that its purpose was to help entrepreneurs to have the money that they need for their businesses. So they also was helping small businesses to be able to have the money whenever they need that. Because big banks and like really big financial institutes, they don't really work with small businesses because it has a lot of risk and effort for them for such a small profit that they can make from that. So Cred was working on that. And I joined Cred as a data engineer, and I was working there for a year and a half. Later on, I joined Apotea, which, as you said, is the leading online pharmacy in Sweden. And together with my manager, who's the chief AI officer, Simon, we started to build a new AI and machine learning team at Apotea, which was a new of a kind in this company. And the reason was that, as you said again, Apotea is such a pioneer in logistics, in e-commerce, and they had decided, okay, now is the time to have machine learning and AI capabilities also in-house inside the company with a team that is a part of this company.
Fantastic. Really, really interesting. And I guess a kind of natural transition from data engineering and or an interesting transition to go at data engineering and, fintech to kind of AI, machine learning at Apotea. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when moving into a leadership role, would you say? How did you overcome them?
So there are a couple of challenges when people, they move from individual contributor role to leadership roles. Because when you are an individual contributor, you have the problems of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
All the problems are in your own control. All the problems can be solved by writing code or like solving this here or there. But when you are in a leadership role, there is a bigger picture. There is a dynamic system that has so many different small pieces that you need to consider all of them when you are making a small change to any of these pieces. Because a small part of this dynamic system will affect the whole system. So you need to have a really wider perspective in order to lead a team and a product forward.
Yeah.
While when you are an individual contributor, you just have a really narrow perspective. You're just doing the task that you're assigned.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think that brings me on to the next topic of hiring in AI and machine learning today. I mentioned in the beginning that you've had well over 300 interviews in this space, and with those interviews under your belt, you've no doubt seen some of the best and some of the worst candidates, right? What are the qualities as a leader? What are the top qualities you look for when hiring for AI and machine learning roles?
Honestly, it has really changed. Like since the first company that I was working at and I was hiring people, compared to now that people are using AI assistants when they are coding, when they are building anything.
Right.
So the criteria, at least for me, has changed a lot. While previously, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, what I was mainly focused on was finding people who are really proficient in coding, who are able to solve one problem at a time. But it's much different now, because now coding is kind of is handled by, for example, ChatGPT. People use Anthropic or any other tool to help them coding, but they need to understand systems. So now engineers that I'm looking for are the people who can see a bigger picture, who can understand systems, and who are really good at architectural design. Because previously, junior engineers, they were mostly focused on coding. But now I even expect junior engineers to put some steps forward in designing and architecture and understanding the end-to-end product.
So it's a much kind of broader profile, essentially, that's being sought after, right? You've got Whereas before it's much more kind of focused on technical proficiency. Now you've kind of got these architecture, system design, and these aspects that are much more important in addition
Exactly.
to them.
One really big challenge when you want to hire data engineers and machine learning engineers is the transition that they have from the time that they had been a student, they had been studying in a university, or even when they have been working in really big companies that they were not owning the end-to-end product that they were building. So they are really focused on writing the code in one small piece. So I always say
function.
Exactly, like a specific function. So the problem is usually that those data engineers and machine learning engineers, they are not really good software engineers. And, by the end of the day, doesn't matter what's your role named, you are a software engineer. You first need to be a good software engineer, then understand how to utilize those skills to put that into data or machine learning context. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I face when I am interviewing people, that I realize either some people that they have moved from software engineering to data or machine learning, they have not found the time to really understand those concepts, and the other way around. Those who are really profound in machine learning concepts, they are not really good software engineers, and they are really used to do scripting, writing in notebooks, and not being able to write productionized code like since early on in the project.
And how, because it's a really, really interesting point, I think. In these fields, how do you then assess, like, when you're hiring, I mean, how do you assess a candidate's ability to adapt, or like this continuous learning mindset? How do you assess for that?
So we usually have some cultural interviews afterward. But we first, at Apotea, we tried both ways. We were first doing the cultural interview in the beginning and then the technical interview. But then we realized it's better to start with the technical interview because people go a bit like under pressure that they need to put on the mask that they usually put during interviews.
Right.
So we realized that it's better to start with the technical interviews. But the way that I usually realize if they are a really good fit or not is to ask about their passion, to understand that they share the passion that I have for coding and building. It's not something that they just want to deliver a result, something that they have been asked for, but they are always pushing to go one step beyond what they are asked for to build a better thing and be passionate about what they are working on.
And you mentioned a point of problem solving before as well. Can you share any real world problem solving scenarios that you've used in interviews to evaluate a candidate's practical skills?
So, for example, when it comes to hiring machine learning engineers, it's really important to understand different aspects of the data that you're using for your machine learning models to be able to build something end to end. By end to end, I mean starting the point that you are asking your stakeholders what is the main problem that they want to solve using that machine learning service, till the point that you put that model into production. So every decision since this starting point will affect the whole aspect of the product. And I try to replicate a case for them so I can see their approach in decision making, how they evaluate each effect of their decisions on different parts of the product. It doesn't matter downstream or upstream of where they are trying to design. So it's kind of like an architecture design, which requires understanding of data, understanding of machine learning, the requirements around it, and put all of them in the context of software engineering.
And with all of this in mind, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring, machine learning or data engineers in today's job market, really competitive job market?
So the best advice that I have is to deeply understand concepts. Instead of trying to learn tools, trying to understand different concepts, I mean, people need to profoundly know why we are doing this. For example, when we are building a data platform, why do we actually need a data lake? Why we are for example, building a feature store? Why we are doing this kind of MLOps frameworks? the why is really important, and it's really affect the decision making downstream. And that's I think the most like prominent advice that I make for people, to deeply understand the concepts and the whys of the architectural design instead of just learning tools and to know what to use here or there.
And we're talking about like hiring here, but also in terms of building and scaling these high performing teams. You've built and scaled, different teams basically. What would you say is the biggest challenge in scaling a high performing machine learning team?
I think like the biggest challenge when it comes to the team, and it really doesn't matter if it is a machine learning team, data team, AI team, it's mainly when it is a product. Because the first step that I separate teams is that either they are working on a project or they are working on a product. Project is a thing that you are going to work on for a while, and it's going to be done. It's over.
There's a start and there's an end. Yeah,
exactly. Like it's a starting point and an end point. But when you're working on a product, it's not the case. You deliver something, then you need to make iteration, then you need to improve that, and it's like a continuous improvement of what you have built and delivered. So, and when people want to work on the product, it really affects, like it really is important how much responsibility and accountability each member in the team is taking. And this is, I think, a really important part of that is the tech stack that you're using and the architecture that you're using. So I think the technology that we choose and the architecture that we build on top of that technology really affects the ways of working in the team, and also how that team is communicating with the rest of the company even. So it was a really kind of deterministic thing for me in the beginning, especially when we started to build our team at Apotea. One example of that is that here in the beginning, we were considering different technologies to use. For example, if you want to go for containers, if you want to host our service on-prem, or if we want to start using cloud providers. But eventually our decision was to go with AWS and use serverless on AWS. And the effect that this has in the ways of working in our team, that is really effective for how is really affecting the performance of our team, is that when you're using serverless, for example, you are not really caring about the infrastructure, and you are creating the architecture on top of that. And the architecture is usually a distributed architecture that is built by different smaller components that they are communicating with each other and creating your product end to end. And then you can have people have ownership on different part of this architecture. And then people have something like contracts in between themselves, how their component as a technology is communicating with each other. And this communication of the technology of the component that they are building becomes a contract in between people as well. So that was really helpful when we were defining ways of working in our team and how we are building.
And how do you balance specialization and generalization in team roles? This must impacts productivity, innovation, right? How do you manage that?
That's a really good question. That depends a lot on what stage the team is at. If the team is really new and they have just started building things, most of the people, they need to have skills to build the use case that they are working on end to end. So, for example, when we were hiring machine learning engineers at Apotea, as we were just launched 6-7 months ago, we were focusing to find people who are comfortable with writing queries, to explore data, to even build CI/CD pipeline infrastructure as code. These are the things that you can't really expect all machine learning engineers knowing that.
Right.
Because these are either really deep in data engineering or really deep in software development. But because of the stage that our team was at, we expected people to be proficient end to end. But the plan that we have in mind is that as we go forward, for example, in 1 month, we are having a new data engineer joining our team, who's going to be the first data engineer in the team. Then that person can take ownership of the data engineering part, and then we can kind of draw a more clear boundary between roles. Because if we wanted to have a data engineer, for example, since the first day, when machine learning engineers, they needed a specific data and they needed to ask the data engineer to bring that data in for them, I think like the conversation with data engineer to explain things for them, and like the uncertainty of them just joining a company, not knowing what's happening here or there, the conversation just to ask for that data could take longer than themselves go create the pipelines and bring the data in.
And this is a point as well, because you can kind of picture a natural progression where, okay, at the very start, most people are, or more people are generalists, right? And then as the team grows, or kind of the product grows, whatever it is, you have kind of specialists, and that all makes sense. But then there's a trade-off there as well, because there is maybe bottlenecks maybe become more frequent and all of this. How do you kind of, what's your view on that? How do you deal with that? Because these are kind of unavoidable to a certain degree, right?
For sure it is, because it's a really traditional problem in software teams, that how much time it takes you to build a thing, to refactor that, to maintain that, or like explain to someone else to build that product that you're looking for. Or even when an issue happens, who's the owner of that? Who should take the ownership, and who's the first person to jump in to solve the issue? So there are really, these are, I think like $1 million questions when it comes to software development with a team. And it really depends on the environment and, even the characteristics of the people that you have in your team. So a big part of that is solved by creating a no blame culture, a culture that people are accountable for what they take responsibility for. And you don't need to make people feel responsible. They take the responsibility themselves, and everything is so clear for them that they exactly know what they should be accountable for. I think that solves a big part of these problems that cause some bottlenecks in the development. But I think it's, as you said, it's just inevitable. It's not something that you can totally remove and have everything so clear and so beautiful and just going forward. These are the challenges that are in the nature of software development.
Indeed. And when talking about kind of designing, you mentioned on kind of system design earlier, but to talk about designing machine learning and data platforms, which you've been doing quite a lot of, how would you say building a machine learning platform differs from creating traditional kind of software applications? Of course, there are lots of parallels that you can draw, but how do they differ, would you say?
Yeah. So the difference is that you can have a scalability in the applications that you're building without having a platform like the way that companies they used to build machine learning applications before. It wasn't scalable when it was coming to the number of applications. When I say scalable, I don't mean the amount of data or like the amount of infrastructure instances or resources that they need. I mean, now the business is evolving so fast, so the requirements from the business change a lot, and especially now with the with the hype in machine learning and AI, there are so many new use cases that the business in the company is asking different teams that they want to build a machine learning solution for them. And in such a scenario, you need to be scalable with the data that you have, with the architecture that you have. So, for example, if you have prepared your data for one machine learning problem, that data can be usable when you are working on a new use case, that the new use case also require the same data. So you don't need to do the same data transformation or feature engineering that you have already done once, again for the new use case. And one big reason that has caused this change, that companies, they have moved toward having a data platform instead of data pipelines, machine learning platform instead of just having one pipeline of data getting in, a machine learning model is being built and it can be served just by APIs. Now things are a bit different. You usually have an machine learning platform where the feature pipeline is now separated from the training or inference pipeline. And the main reason behind that is really thanks to the new hype of machine learning and AI, that the companies realize, okay, this use case is not the only thing that we can use machine learning for. Now we can increase the efficiency, we can increase our customer satisfaction, and we can create the baseline for innovation if we have a platform.
Exactly. And I think many, to kind of mention, specific cloud native architectures and these different kind of machine learning ops, ML ops tools, a lot of companies are kind of using these to scale their machine learning models more efficiently, right? Because as far as I know, I'm no expert in the field, but they kind of allow for flexible scaling or kind of automated deployment and continuous kind of updates. How have these kind of, I mentioned here the kind of cloud native architecture and stuff like this, how have these emerging technologies influenced your approach to designing and managing platforms at Apotea?
For sure, affects a lot. As I told you, we are using AWS as the backbone of everything that we're building. So we have everything being built on AWS and using serverless, using distributed applications that are there. But one thing that I think so many people have misunderstood when they want to start building machine learning or data use cases on cloud is that they think that they should start using those really expensive services that are available by AWS, by GCP, by Azure. And for example, like Databricks, these are really amazing tools. I have used them myself, but I have used them when it was actually needed, when it was worth the money that I was paying for them. While, as I said before, machine learning is just doing software engineering in the context of interpreting some patterns from the data. So you can use the already built native, for example, serverless tools that are existing on AWS, and you put them together yourself, just like a puzzle, in a way that you can use them for machine learning. So, for example, you don't necessarily need to go use SageMaker on AWS and pay thousands of dollars per month to be able to build machine learning. But still, that tool is also built for a reason. So it's not that it's that easy to build machine learning with other tools much cheaper, and then there's no sense having SageMaker there. So there is a boundary when you actually need to pay for managed services on the cloud, like SageMaker, like Vertex AI from GCP or Databricks, or when you can put small pieces together and build what you need yourself. So it also comes to the point that, again, like at what stage that team, company, or product is at. So in the beginning, it's always good with a start, like having some POC, building things yourself. And then whenever you saw that, okay, this software complexity is taking more engineering effort from my team compared to that I go just pay for SageMaker and have everything be automated and taken control by the service behind the scene, then that's a good point. Good transition point to go use SageMaker.
And connected somewhat to what we're talking about here with, you mentioned using the tools when it makes sense to use the tools, when it's necessary, right? What would you say are some of or one of the biggest mistakes that companies make when designing machine learning platforms? How can they avoid them?
I think the first biggest mistake is that they don't see all the problems that they would have in future when they are not really working on their data.
Right.
So I think data is really important. The data quality is really important. The way that you're managing your data is really important. And usually these machine learning teams, they are hired by the business, the senior business level people. And they only care about building something that actually has a direct impact on their numbers and their business. But here the problem is that data doesn't have any direct impact on the business. So people really overlook that because they don't see the direct impact of data on the numbers or on their profit or on their revenue. So they ignore that. They skip this stage of creating a really good data layer for the machine learning application that they need to build on top of that. And after 3 years, 4 years, they see that they have hired 20 machine learning engineers, data scientists just to solve one problem. And all of them, they are repeating the same thing, doing the same data cleaning, doing the same data transformation again and again after years. and eventually their models are not really reliable because they cannot really evaluate or validate if the models are working well because they don't really know what data that they're using as an input. So that's the biggest mistake, I guess.
Yeah, and to talk a little bit about industry trends or kind of expectations for within businesses around AI. How, in your opinion, in your experience, how has the business side's understanding and expectations of AI shifted over the past few years? I mean, more and more companies are kind of integrating it or trying to kind of integrate it throughout their businesses. But how would you say the business side's understanding has changed?
I think there were some confusion like maybe 1 year ago, but now I think like it has been understood pretty well by the business people. And I think the most important thing to understand is this new AI that we have is built to make it possible to provide some customized services to our customers. So it should be against any generalization of any service. So it's a good starting point in our mind when we are thinking of implementing it, when we're thinking of using AI to solve a problem, to see how much we are providing a customized service to our customers, to the other businesses that we are working with. For example, one example of that is that early on, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, companies, they started to have chatbots on their websites everywhere.
Right.
So you were seeing so many chatbots that no one liked them. And the problem was that chatbots, they were built for the companies, not for the customers. They were built to reduce the amount of requests that was going to their customer support. So it was an example of generalization of a service instead of like customization for your customers. That was the reason that customers actually like really hated that product. And no one, like I haven't seen any successful chatbot ever, though still when I sit with this like big cloud provider, they still try to advertise the capability of creating chatbots using their Gen AI services here or there. So I think like that's a good example of misunderstanding the application of AI by the decision makers that I think as we go forward is going to get better and better.
Yeah. It's a really interesting point because obviously it's a massive use case, isn't it? Chat bots and tools when it comes to the application of AI. And what strategies have you been using at Apotea, for example, to kind of bridge the gap between the technical teams, obviously those that are kind of in the know, and the business stakeholders? Because I think it's an interesting point you make about maybe some people thinking you're solving a problem. They see the problem as these kind of internal problems or kind of reducing the kind of need for humans kind of for that kind of customer support, for example. But the real problem is kind of the end user and how they interact with the product, right? But what strategies have you used to kind of bridge the gap between technical teams and business stakeholders?
So again, this was one of the really important decisions that we made in the beginning, how we built first our own team. And the structure of my team is that my manager, Simon, who's also the chief AI officer at the company, he is the product owner of whatever we are building in my team. And he is directly reporting to the CEO. So it's really nice that we have such a short distance between what we are building here and my team with the CEO. So the AI team is not actually a part of the tech department that we may have a lot of, kind of people in the middle till we reach the main decision maker in the company who's CEO. And that's one of the things that actually helped a lot, that Simon had direct communication with the CEO, who is a really visionary CEO and usually has really good inputs into what we're building. And the other part of that was that Simon is always really focused on product side and unfocused on the technical side. And that was a decision that we made in the beginning, that we are not building machine learning applications. We are building machine learning products. So we want to really focus on the product side. And when you talk about having a product-focused mindset, it means that you're not taking any request. You're getting problems. So the main problem that makes like this misunderstanding and like lack of communication between decision makers and people who are working in technical teams is that technical teams, they let other people come to them with requests. I think like this is the biggest mistake.
Yeah.
People from the decision makers, they should come to technical teams with a problem in hand and let the technical team decide what is the best way to solve that problem.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think we've spoken about it in previous episodes as well, but it's that kind of request center kind of way of looking at a team in a company. Like, I have this, solve it. And it's kind of just like, ticking boxes, but it's much better. I think, like you say, you go to a team with a problem, that team is kind of well placed and educated on researching the best route to solve that problem.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And we created some really good processes around that. So now, whenever we have a use case, we first create a list of the stakeholders, people who may be affected by this and people who may have an input on that, both downstream who are the users of that service, and also upstream those who are the data producers for that service that we're building. Then we have a use case assessment document that we start by understanding first the problem, what exactly is the problem there. Then we start understanding what is the impact on the business, what are the KPIs that are coming from the business for that service. And we assess the technical complexity of that project. And then we continue doing some data exploration, doing some kind of POC. And after doing all of this, when we made sure that, okay, we can actually help here, then we will have a kickoff session with the stakeholders that will tell them, okay, now is the time that we're telling you that we will do that. Before that, before having that kickoff session and before making like some POCs to make sure we can actually improve that service, we won't promise anyone that we will do that for them. But after that kickoff, then we will follow everything related to building a product, to start writing production level code since beginning and having different environments, having different evaluation, validation, and risk assessment to make sure that what we're building is kind of reliable, robust, and can actually bring value to the business.
Now, really, really interesting. Can you give us an idea of some things that you're building currently, for example? I'm not asking you to kind of give us the details of what you're building per se, but anything, maybe even the problem that you're building these machine learning products, as you phrase them.
So our team, we had 3 visions since we started. One of the visions that we had was to make sure that we are increasing our customer satisfaction. We are bringing a better experience for Apotea's customers. And then the first product that we started building related to that was the product recommendation on the website. What we had realized was the previously built product recommendations on Apotea's website, which was built like maybe 8-9 years ago by one of the co-founders of the company, wasn't, kind of modern enough and proficient enough to really satisfy the expectations that people have nowadays from recommendations on different e-commerce websites or on social media. But now people really expect everything to be more personalized, everything to be more aligned with their needs. So that was one of the products that we started building early on. And we have already gone into production, and we are doing some A/B testing to find the best model that we can use there. The other vision that we had was to increase the efficiency in the company, to make sure that we can exploit AI in a way that it brings comfort to how people are working and be an assistant for them. So one of the challenges that online pharmacies face is that there are lots of prescriptions written by different doctors, that each of them, they have some different information inside them. And then we created a Gen AI application using Bedrock on AWS, that it was reading the prescription and it was making some decision, trying to categorize if there was any specific thing inside the prescription. For example, some prescriptions, the doctor had said that this medication should only be picked up by the parents. And if the kids themselves, they go on Apotea's website and try to order that, we shouldn't let them finalize the order. So we have now automated that, but still, because it is such a sensitive, area. It's about medication. It's about medical health of people. All of the stuff that we're doing downstream are going to be checked by a pharmacist when they are actually going to ship that product. But still, in the middle of the way, we have reduced a lot of effort that our order control team, they needed to take care, and they needed to make call to the people who had made those order to make sure that everything is right, or like try to kind of refactor or like change some orders. Now we have solved that problem using Gen AI. And it's so interesting that the system that we have built for that, about the thing that someone, like if a specific person should pick up the medication, or if it should be shipped by a specific shipping method. So far, from the feedback that we have from our order pharmacists who are working at order control, it has 100% accuracy. So in the beginning, it has like 95, 96, and it's a really simple solution that used just like prompt engineering and some examples. And now we made it to go from 95, 96% accuracy to 100 now.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Really, really nice examples of kind of application of Gen AI here. And I think when you were talking about the kind of product recommendation feature there as well, so it made me think, like when you visit sites like Apotea and other sites, you, as a user now, or kind of the customer, you do expect that website to know your kind of your needs, your tastes, everything, to kind of be able to recommend the right product based on what you've been looking at during that specific visit, past visits, whatever it might be. It's an expectation now, right?
Exactly. It is a bit more complex when you are in this industry, that there are so many sensitive data. For example, if the customers, they are actually ordering their medication from our website.
Exactly, yeah.
So for example, we have no recommendation when it comes to medication, and we're not utilizing their medical information, medical data to suggest anything. So the borderlines are a bit sensitive here. It's not just like social media that you can suggest everything. Maybe.
Exactly, it's far different in this industry than social media, e-commerce, or like other kind of e-commerce, retail, for example, stuff like this. Absolutely. But you mentioned the point of this kind of automation and everything like that. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for AI-driven automation in the next 3 to 5 years? Whatever industry, where do you see the biggest opportunity?
Honestly, the whole kind of tools and technology that exists in AI is moving so fast that it's really hard to even predict like 2-3 years. But the trend that I see, at least like for now, is like the multi-agent communications, the multi-agents trying to solve a problem, compared to like last year when it was like the early days for ChatGPT, or like for so many different services that they were giving you the capability to create an AI agent. There were mostly one single agent taking care of something, and it was a bit difficult to do that, because the current the state of the AI that we have is that it's really possible and good to create some agents that they are skilled and specialized in one thing, rather than making agents that they are really good at several things, which is something which is like promised by AGI in future, that you have one AI agent that is able to do everything if they don't replace ourselves for whole. So now it's really nice to create a multi-AI agent that they are orchestrated and they have really good communication in between each other to solve a problem that needs different perspective to that problem.
And what industries do you think will benefit most from this kind of AI-driven automation?
Honestly, I think the first industry that is really benefited from that are the software developers themselves. Like we are really widely using AI in our day-to-day work.
Kind of superpowers, right? The augmented developer.
Yeah, I honestly can't imagine myself now without using ChatGPT or like Claude for a day.
Yeah.
So we are, I think, the people who have benefited the most from that, and we are using that the most. And I really am looking forward, like people starting to understand that this is actually bringing a value. It's not really replacing engineers, And I am of the opinion that I don't think if any soon it can really like replace software engineer and developers, but it actually give people more time to focus on more important tasks, more wider tasks, and bigger picture to be able to solve the problem that they have. But the other industries, I'm sure that it will first like whatever new technology first go to gaming, goes to entertainment, and these are the first one that would be benefit as well.
Yeah. And how is, particularly with kind of automation being one of the key drivers of the growth of the AI market over the coming years, how is Apotea positioning itself to kind of leverage AI-driven automation over the coming years?
So we have been planning for that. So when I was telling you our visions for our team, the third vision after the customer satisfaction and increasing the efficiency in the company, the third vision that my team has is to create the foundations for innovation in the company. So we want to be able, whenever we have an idea, be able to assess that idea, to have the technology, the foundation, the architecture, everything behind the scene, that whenever someone has an idea, have a use case, we can easily test that idea. So I think Apotea is one of the first e-commerce companies that is active in at least like pharmacy industry that has started to build these capabilities widely. And we are trying to be so wise to select the best use cases that we have in hand to make sure that Apotea's future is going to be open to AI applications. And whenever there is a use case that is actual use case for AI, we don't want to have AI and just walk around and try to use AI for everything. But we want to see the problems that we may actually be able to solve with AI. And we want to be kind of pioneers for that. We want to be able to take that into action from the decision that we make, have a really short time to action.
Really nice that you're thinking of that kind of innovation hub within the team there. So that's really good. And I think it's kind of like a final section here. I'd like to get your views on like leadership and mentoring as well in this field. What, as a leader yourself, what are the essential leadership qualities you think required to lead AI and machine learning teams today?
I think the most important factor is to be able to lead as an example yourself. So, for example, I am really passionate about what I do. I absolutely love my job. I really enjoy that. And people around me, they can easily see that. So I see when my coworkers, people in my team, they see how passionate I am myself, they get passionate about what they do. And they realize that there are people understanding their passion and they are pushing them forward. So being passionate is really important. And in the current job market that people are mostly hiring senior engineers, I think a really good advice for junior engineers who yet don't have the skills to get the positions and get the roles that they are applying for is to show that they are really passionate about. That's the only, I think, winning card that junior engineers have compared to senior engineers. Because the market is looking for senior engineers right now. And the only kind of skill that someone junior can show to get the job is to show that they are passionate and they will go beyond the limits to solve a problem.
Yeah, no, really, really well put. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned as a tech leader? Maybe something that you wish you knew earlier in your career.
There are so many that I don't know which one to choose. But the most important lesson that I have learned is that I, as a tech lead, I should listen a lot to my engineers and don't just try to listen whatever people on top of me they are asking me to do. Because if I don't listen to what my engineers and the individual contributors in my team they are giving me as a feedback, I cannot really deliver what the decision makers are actually asking me to do for them. So it's really important to find a balance and be able to deliver what your individual contributors, what your engineers in your team are asking you to communicate with higher people in the company, and to make sure that there is a mutual understanding between engineering and product and business. That's the lesson that I learned early on in my career, I guess, and helped me the most.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And I think it's hard for individuals or teams to kind of feel agency if they don't feel listened to either, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, really, really good. Before I wrap up here, Seppi, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, nothing from my side. I really enjoyed the conversation, and you asked really good, the question that I was looking for.
Nice.
So I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, but I really enjoyed it too. So thanks so much for joining us today, Seppi. Yeah, really interesting conversation.
So much.
Yeah, really nice to hear about your journey from startups to leading AI and machine learning at Apotea. And your views on hiring as well, perspectives of the future. So it's really, really, really interesting conversation. Thanks.
Yes, and the only thing that I can tell people who are watching this or listening to this podcast later is that we are looking for good engineers at Apotea. And if there is anyone out there who's really passionate about working in a really live team, vibrant team, that they are going with a really fast pace and they are trying to build everything following the best practices, they should just send me a message on LinkedIn. And of course, I'm so excited to meet them and discuss this further.
Fantastic. And they heard it here first. There we go. So to our listeners, yes, you heard it here first, but also thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review and share it with fellow builders. Until next time, keep building and keep innovating. We'll see you soon.